Yes, Stefan. So you're a physician assistant and you're the CEO of Iron Direct Primary.
Owner, CEO of Iron Direct Primary Care. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for finding the time to come over. I guess we can just dive in. So thank you so much for coming over to my YouTube channel. I'm very excited for our little chat today. But before we start, can you tell our audience a little bit about your background and eventually how that translated into getting into a carnivore diet and recommending that? And also like professionally and personally, I know that you eat a carnivore diet. Like how did that happen? So yeah, a little bit of background.
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up as a tennis player, tennis professional, and that was all my childhood training throughout Europe. But I was raised in a pretty holistic family where my parents, they didn't really bring us to conventional doctors. When I was raised in Germany, we went to German homeopathists. My parents were big into Chinese medicine. But when we came to the US, they saw that it was a pretty good career path to go into medicine. So that's what I trained to do. And I went and did my undergraduate in exercise science at the University of Central Florida. I graduated there, became a personal trainer, but had the whole time the plan of going into medicine. So I was working in the emergency department at the same time as a scribe, and then eventually got into physician associate school and did my medical training, which physician associate is basically a master's degree where you learn the same material that physicians learn, but it's in a compressed time. And so it's really intense training. So you sit in the class for the first year learning conventional medicine. Then you go out in the field in the clinical course and you rotate through all the specialties, OBGYN, surgery, emergency medicine, primary care, psychiatry, everything. And then you come out and, I left Massachusetts, which is where I studied, came back to Florida, did conventional medicine. So I did urgent care, I did spine surgery, I did psychiatry, and really the theme that I saw this whole time was that patients weren't getting better. We just giving them pills. And the root cause of disease was inflammation, whatever it was, whether it was primary care, psychiatry, or spine surgery, the root cause was inflammation. And with my background, I always understood that, we need to fix these people's diets. We need to get them on the right, exercise program, supplements. Medicine has its place, and I do anti-aging medicine, but the way conventional medicine is done, for the most part, people don't get better. And you just treat the symptoms and you give them the next pill and you just suppress the symptoms. And these people, they're sick. And I always wanted to start my own practice, and finally it just came to play. I got a good partner. We set up the groundwork for this, and it's just been taking off ever since. Now, what I do for the most part is I counsel patients on nutrition. That's how you fix people, is teach them how to eat right. Now, a carnivore diet is a great elimination diet. And I did that only for about a week. I'm actually not completely carnivore. I found that doing a week of carnivore, it leaned me out great for a photo shoot. All that water weight, it kind of goes away, it dries you out. It looks great, but performance-wise, I found that I couldn't play tennis at the same level. I needed a little bit of carbohydrates. And I get some guys, they come to me full carnivore, and it works well for some time, but I see problems with it long-term. Specifically for men, I see it lower testosterone, and it can sometimes affect libido. This is very interesting. So I think carnivore is a great elimination diet, but long-term, it does sometimes need to be modified. Same thing with like a ketogenic diet, and same thing with a vegan diet. All these elimination diets, they have one thing in common, which is eliminating the standard American diet, which you're going to get better with that. But all of these diets, they sometimes do need to be modified at some point, though.
I wonder though, if boosting your fat intake on a carnivore diet, if that would offset a dip in hormonal balance.
Yeah.
Right?
Guys sometimes do too lean a meat, and I counsel patients a lot with that. They will reach towards the lean chicken breast or the lean 90%, 92% ground beef. I'm like, no, you need the good fats. And I
Right.
have to explain the whole saturated fat lipid hypothesis deal.
Right. Also, I actually came across you by researching anti-nutrients, and you had a lecture on anti-nutrients. You actually have a YouTube channel where you have posted a lot of lectures. So I'm going to make sure that I link it below. If people are interested, they can go and check that out. And that was basically how I got into carnivores, because I started learning about anti-nutrients, and I realized that if I took them off, then I recover faster and I don't have as much soreness with my exercise and recovery. That's like a personal experience with those kinds of diets. I was wondering, when you did that 1 week of a carnivore diet, since do you still play tennis on a regular basis?
Yeah, I just got off the court now.
Okay, so how do you feel maybe that 1 week when you did and played around with the carnivore diet? Did you feel that it affected soreness or recovery or anything like that?
Not necessarily. I feel like my recovery is very good because of the amount of amino acids and the wide variety of nutrients that I get, you know, incorporating organ meats. I incorporate hydrolyzed collagen peptides. So you're going to be getting so many nutrients, you know, from that, and you're going to recover faster. You don't need to be taking branched chain amino acids and drinking that during a workout to recover if you have the right amino acids in the first place.
How is your diet like right now?
So I'd say 80% of the diet is meats. That's where I'm going to fill up, right? Saturated fat and meats. I do then a little bit of carbs. So whether that's a little bit of rice or maybe something gluten-free, I will implement that, but it's not most of my calories.
So you do white rice, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I'll do white rice rather than the brown rice because of the phytic acid anti-nutrients.
Exactly. And so you're basically animal-based, right? Like 80% of your diet is animal-based, as opposed to the general recommendation that as dietitians, I went through nutrition school and I was taught that plant-based is the way to go. This is what they continue to teach dietitians to this day. This is what everybody is hearing. Sorry about my dog. I thought he was going to be sleeping next to me, but he's got a little extra energy today. Normally, I don't let him here. I keep him outside, but there are people outside working on the roof of our neighbors. So he's barking, basically.
Yeah, the dietitians are trained that veganism is optimal, right?
Exactly. That's the official position statement, right, of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, that a vegan diet can be helpful at all stages of the lifespan, not just if you're healthy, even if you're pregnant, if you're breastfeeding. Like, that's the official position statement. It's quite shocking given what we know, right, about anti-nutrients, about high carb diets, all that kind of stuff. This is not how we evolved. For 99.99% of our existence, those foods weren't around. We weren't eating that, right? Yeah. So so you're basically eating 80% animal based, which I guess is also my recommendation. Not everybody has to do 100% carnivore. Like, it's not, but it helps. And I'm sure you've probably had experience with your clients, right? Do you ever give that to your clients just as an elimination diet?
As an elimination diet, it's probably the simplest way to, if you're super inflamed, you've got pain, you're sick, you cut out everything and you do a full carnivore diet, you're going to notice improvements. That blood pressure is going to come down. Your arthritis is going to start going away. Your mental clarity, your brain fog's you're going to feel that so much better.
And how is the reaction of your clients when you first run this by them, and how do you get to convince them that it is an important step to take?
It is tough. Oftentimes patients will tell me, what about the saturated fat? Doesn't that give you heart disease? And I refer them to my YouTube channel, like, watch a little bit of my videos here. And even the American College of Cardiology is catching on. And in 2020, they came and released a statement saying that saturated fat doesn't cause heart disease, and that we shouldn't be doing these standard lipid profiles that are absolutely garbage. They don't catch heart disease. If you
Yeah.
look at the latest Get With The Guidelines study done, about 300,000 patients admitted to the hospital with MI and CVA, so heart attack and stroke. Half of these patients, 150,000, had a quote unquote normal lipid panel. So they still were in the hospital with a stroke, but they had a normal cholesterol panel. So we're missing patients, but we're also over treating patients using this antiquated test.
Exactly. I even found a study that found that 75% of patients admitted to that hospital had normal LDL cholesterol. I did a video on that, and I did another video on the paper you're talking about. It was published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, and it was a state-of-the-art review that only looked at the last 10 years. So this is what a state-of-the-art review, meaning you're not including the Ansel Keys studies from the 50s that have been heavily criticized. You're only focusing on the most recent ones that are hopefully better made. And yeah, the result is, like you said, there is no scientific evidence to support limiting saturated fats when it comes in the form of high quality meat, like grass-fed meat, in the absence of fries and burgers and sodas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think there is definitely some nuance. You mentioned the quality of the meats. I am actually a bit concerned about grain-fed cows. So there's a couple of reasons I'm against them. The one reason, the biggest reason, is if you look at liver abscesses in grain-fed cows, it's such a huge problem that they're trying to develop vaccines to immunize cows against these liver abscesses. But if you look at the cows that are grass-fed, they don't get liver abscesses. It's only when you start feeding them the corn and stuff. And I think it's two reasons. So one of the reasons is that this corn is moldy. So the cows are consuming highly moldy grains. And I believe the mold is triggering inflammation in these cows and potentially contributing to the abscesses. But also, if you look at humans, when I worked at an urgent care, these people would come in with abscesses all the time, and I'd have to drain these things. Absolutely very tough procedure, very strong smell. These people are fed grains for the most part. They're sick. And I'm seeing a correlation with these these slave food basically diets and these sickness, these especially abscesses.
Interesting.
That's very
interesting. Do any of your patients over time maintain an 80% animal-based or like a mainly animal-based diet after going through your care?
Yes. When they start optimizing this and they are increasing the amount of meats they eat, grass-fed, finished meats, implementing organ meats, and they cut out a lot of refined stuff, they're going to get so much better. Pretty much most of their problems get better. And specifically, I've noticed the first thing is the blood pressure starts decreasing.
Yes. This is like the first thing that happens so quickly. And you
Within
have to
about
caution them.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they're taking medication, you have to literally give them a warning to work very diligently with that and taper it down. So,
yes.
Yeah.
They'll start getting dizzy because the blood pressure starts going down, and they're on 3 antihypertensives. We had to back off on those.
Yeah. So and then the official diet that dietitians and I was taught is to prescribe the DASH diet, the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, right? Where you're still giving them the grains, you're still giving them a high carbohydrate diet, and then you're just scaring them away from the sodium because the idea is that, oh, it's the salt. When they don't realize it's the insulin that's hanging on to the electrolytes to the salt that you're eating. It's not the salt.
It's very interesting. Dietitians still pushing the low salt diets too?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Nothing has changed for decades.
It's so interesting. If you look at the studies that show what happens on a low salt diet, one thing that happens is it lowers blood pressure by 0.4 millimeters of mercury, which is nothing. But second, it increases mortality.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, there's a lot of studies on that, but the problem is that we don't have randomized control trials on an ancestral diet, like an animal-based diet, because we've been taught that this has been a fad. You know, those were the homeworks that I would receive as a dietitian. why is a paleo diet a fad diet? Why is a keto diet a fad? Or what, you know, like those are the kinds of things that we're brainwashed. And for someone like me, it took me a very long time to get around that because I was so heavily brainwashed. Thankfully, you grew up in a holistic household. Maybe it was easier for you to kind of accept that. Or no, not really. Actually, this brings me back to how you got into animal-based. Like maybe.
Well, my parents, they went through so many fad diets. So I was raised for the first 7 years of my life in a macrobiotic household. You familiar with macrobiotic?
He did that for a while. Yes, I did
Yeah,
that.
their founder, Michio Kushi, I believe, died of pancreatic cancer.
Osho, I think his name is.
Kushi.
Really? Oh, okay.
Kushi was the big guru for macrobiotic. And
Okay.
it's really restrictive. It's like brown rice, like tofu, a lot of vegetables and stuff. That wasn't good. What
No
else?
dairy. Yeah.
No dairy. And then we in Italy, we kind of changed the diet a little bit. It was a little bit more mixed. And then one point we went through a Gerson diet. You know Gerson?
No.
Oh, it's wacky. Gerson has this juicing protocol where you juice like kale and apples and celery like 12 times a day, and you drink this stuff, and you do like coffee enemas, and it's supposed to cure cancer. I think what it does is it actually speeds cancer, because again, if you're bombarding yourself with like fructose and sugar, I don't think it's a very good thing to do to treat cancer patients. But
Wow.
it's something my parents just did as like a cleanse for a while, and it is not a good idea. I don't recommend it either. Then we did a anti-inflammatory diet for a while, where we were eating literally sardines and mustard like every day, sardines and kale.
And mustard.
And like, cause it was like make the sardines more palatable, but like lots of kale and sardines, and that's supposed to decrease inflammation.
So your parents would do those things and they would put the kids on them as well.
Yeah, we
That's
just had
funny.
to go with it.
That's
And
funny.
we weren't allowed dairy. We lived in Italy for the longest time and weren't allowed dairy. So no gelato, no mozzarella, nothing like that. It was very strict. I know.
That must have been hard.
Yeah, it was hard.
Wow. So how did you go from that to animal-based?
Well, it was actually in Massachusetts. And I didn't learn it in school there. That was like conventional training. But what I did is I had amazing tennis courts right across from where I lived in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I met this naturopathic physician, and we played tennis every day together. And I was like, man, I can't play tennis much too much because I got tennis elbow. I was terrible all throughout university, college tennis, terrible tennis elbow. I was eating ibuprofens, all this stuff to try to help tennis elbows, icing it. I changed my rackets. I looked at my technique. Nothing helped. I actually gave up tennis for like a year. And then I met the naturopathic physician, and I like, look, man, I can't play tennis with you much. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, cut out the breads, the gluten, and cut out the nightshades, and cut out the dairy. I'm like, what? Cut out gluten and nightshades? What's a nightshade? And he explained it all to me. I'm like, all right, I'll give this wacky stuff a try. He's a naturopathic physician. He's all natural. Let's try it. I gave it a go. Sure enough, my tennis elbow got better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just by taking out the nightshades and the grains, basically.
Yep. Nightshades and grains.
But you were still having carbs. Were you having dairy?
He told me to cut out the dairy too, and I cut out the dairy too. And I felt like it was mostly the grains and beers too. The alcohol is not good, especially like grain alcohol. Terrible for inflammation.
And from that's basically what kickstarted your interest, I guess.
Yeah, and I was like, how do you know all this stuff? He's like, PubMed. We use Google Scholar and PubMed. And so that kind of kickstarted my YouTube channel. After I graduated, I just started researching all this stuff and compiling all this literature that they didn't teach me in school.
Yes, and by the way, they still don't teach it in school, just so you know. Yeah. And well, I guess that's how you got into it. For me, I was lucky enough that Dr. Stephen Gundry had published a book, The Plant Paradox. So I was able to get all this information because he did all the work, put all that information in one book, and I read the book. And that was a shocker that vegetables of all things were not really your best friend. And that
Yeah.
really is what started me on this. It took me a while. It took me like months because I was doing keto. And then it took me months after figuring out that veggies have anti-nutrients to psych myself up to cut that out and just eat meat. And I feel like you don't normally go back to that. Once you understand anti-nutrients and you remove them and you have personal experiences with the beneficial effects of that, you don't normally go back. Whereas when people do plant-based, or yeah, like if you're doing vegan or plant-based, you often eventually have to go back to an ancestral diet, but you do not see the reverse. When people actually do an animal-based diet, you don't go back and eat more vegetables. And I think that's an interesting observation.
I'll encounter patients in my practice who have been vegan or vegetarian for long periods of time, and they usually will present to me with some sort of autoimmune condition, and I'm seeing it in the post state. So post wild type and post, these people, they develop some strange autoimmune conditions, and I believe it's just from vegans and vegetarians. They can get away with it for a long time and they'll feel better because they're just cutting out the sad diet. But eventually these deficiencies, they catch up with them and something happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with what's happening, right, with what happened in the last 2 years, and I try not even say the word, because you know what happens on social media when you do go there. I've actually received a warning on my YouTube channel because I posted a video on that. So I think that form of additional inflammation stresses out the system even more. It's already being stressed out by those anti-nutrients on a chronic dose, and now you give it one more virus and it goes haywire, basically.
Yeah.
Interesting. So do you get pushback from other doctors or, you know, professionals in your field?
Yeah.
Because I know I do.
I had to leave conventional medicine. When I worked in psychiatry, I had registered dietitians calling me up and threatening to report me to the state for what I was doing, what I was counseling patients. It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, see, this is why we can't be employed. We're unemployable. We have to be the bosses. Yeah.
Have to. It doesn't work. I can't work for anyone else.
Exactly. I know that for myself as well. So, okay. I did not realize how deep into anti-aging you are, because another major passion of mine, and actually is my main passion, is anti-aging. I want to live forever. And I know that sounds crazy, but I think I could make a case for myself. And really the diet stuff and the exercise stuff and everything else is kind of like in service of anti-aging. In my goals, you know, what I'm passionate about. So I did not realize that you were that big into anti-aging. So that's your specialty mainly?
Yeah. So that's what I do. It's anti-aging medicine. I'm doing the board certification in anti-aging medicine with A4M, and I love it. So, you know, it's all about optimizing health with hormones for the most part. I feel like the anti-aging medicine society is a little bit more plant-based. They're not fully on board with ancestral diet yet. I think they'll get there.
Right.
They love the plant compounds in the plant diet for the most part.
Why do you think that is?
And I actually asked when I was at the symposium, and I went up to the lecturer and I asked him, I was like, what do you think about, you know, instead of taking, like, he had a list of all these supplements you're supposed to take. It's like a lot of these supplements you can get if you eat organ meats. What do you think about that? And he's like, oh, you don't want to eat organs because that's where all the toxins go in the animal. I'm like, yeah, if you're eating like a grain-fed animal.
Right. But I mean, the organs, they detoxify the toxins. They're not storing the toxins.
Yes,
right?
unless they're a grain-fed cow, and then they get abscesses.
Right.
But you know, the misconception is that organs contain the toxins, and really that's not the case. They detoxify the animal. The animal would die if the organs aren't working, which, you know, it does happen in the grain-fed animals. But for the most part, they're perfectly fine.
And would you say like the vast majority of the people that you see are mainly interested in anti-aging, or it's just that they're developing signs and symptoms of conditions, and so that's their main complaints?
So patients that come to me often are autoimmune patients who no one can figure out what's wrong with them. And so I have to, put on my Sherlock Holmes hat and go to their house, go through their kitchen cabinets, their fridge. And for the most part, I'm pulling out the corn oils, the soybean oils, the processed foods, and we'll fill up like 7 bags worth of trash and we'll take it out to the trash together.
But wait a second. I thought that the American Heart Association recommends corn oil.
Yeah, they love
those. You throw that away.
Yeah, we throw out the Missoula corn oil, big canister of it. We throw that out. That's a machine lubricant.
Oh, exactly, right? Oh my gosh. I do this activity with my students every semester. So I teach at Miami-Dade College, the introductory nutrition class. And I show them, there's this video on the American Heart Association's YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube and Google AHA, Healthy Vegetable Oils 101, or Healthy Oils 101. And the video that comes out, it's a 3-minute video where they're basically touting the benefits and urging you to consume peanut oil, sunflower oil to make a moist cake, and I'm quoting them, safflower, all that kind of stuff. It's hilarious. But what's funnier, if you scroll down and you read the comment section of people, like all kinds of like hilarious things. Everybody knows, everybody's laughing at it. It's like, oh, I love to have my inflammatory oils. I like to feel puffy every day and things like that. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But
so that's great. You're teaching the next generation some sense.
Yes. They love it and they're lucky because I don't know how many other dietitians are teaching this stuff. I'm probably maybe the only one in the United States. I mean, I give them what the textbook is saying. I have to give it to them. But at the same time, I give them everything else. And I criticize why those things are wrong. Wow. But there is a curriculum that I have to follow, and the quiz is based off of the textbook. But they get everything, and they understand why this data is so outdated, why we're still recommending high carbs, and we go into all that kind of stuff.
Okay, well that's good. At least you're teaching them and make them critically think and question the data. I'll give credit to my PA program for that. The first lecture we ever had was an evidence-based medicine class where we reviewed the literature on these statin drugs. We reviewed the literature on antihypertensive drugs, and we critically evaluated it. And we identified that the number needed to treat to save 1 life with Lipitor is 100. You need to treat 100 patients with it to save 1 life. And you just look at that risk benefit. You can see all the risks there. You're like, are we really doing the right thing there? And they're very formative to critically think like that. And that was the only class. After that, it was just memorize disease pill, test disease pill. That was it.
That's so true. It's like a legal drug dealer, right?
Yeah. In a way. They're getting a similar class with you, which is good. Maybe a light bulb will go off.
Oh, it does. I had a student of mine last semester completely cleared her psoriasis, depression, anxiety goes away. She lost weight. And she was like, I cannot believe all of this is happening just by going carnivore, animal-based mainly.
Yep. Amazing.
And I get these things all the time, from like my students, and a lot of them are saved from a vegan lifestyle. A lot of my students have been doing vegan. It's not working for them. And I'm like, okay, bear with me. And by the end of the semester, they understand why I believe that an animal-based diet is the optimal human diet, because this is what we ate for 99.99% of our existence. You know?
I don't know if you saw my lecture on NAD. So we evolved to be NAD consumers.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So red meat has the highest proportion of NAD in it. And if you look at this amazing paper, it's really long. It took me about 50 minutes to read the whole paper on my YouTube channel, but it just goes through the evolutionary process of how we evolved to be NAD consumers. And there's this balance between optimal NAD status and then not, and then disease and parasitical infections. It's very interesting.
So maybe you can share with our audience why NAD is so important. And I believe you're going in the anti-aging direction, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, because this is like a major molecule being studied. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Dr. David Sinclair, he's a big researcher on NAD and its properties for anti-aging, right? He developed the True Niagen product, which people can take as supplements for anti-aging. There's so many anti-aging NAD supplements, but you look where NAD comes from, right? It's our mitochondria use it. We have billions of these mitochondria. All of them need NAD. And we evolved over millions of years. We evolved out of the trees to become NAD consumers because it's most nutrient rich. You can look at go to the zoo and you look at the orangutans. The orangutans have a big distended belly. It's not because they're fat, it's because they have a lot more intestine than us. So all their energy goes towards digestion of leafy plants. So their brains didn't develop because all that energy, instead of going to the brain so that we can, shoot rockets into space, that energy goes towards digestion. So the reason we're not still stuck in the trees is because we were the apes that got out of the tree and decided to maybe eat that animal instead of digesting the plants. So allowed our energy to fuel our brain. And we get this through NAD, which is a much more rich source of energy compared to digesting plants.
And NAD is a form of a B vitamin, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
So people know it's a vitamin B3, a form of vitamin B3. And there's also an NMN supplement that people take. Can you explain which is better? Because I've seen both on the market.
Yeah, so there is some controversy whether can we even utilize NAD in the first place. And I think maybe some liposomal products are a little bit better for actually getting NAD into the system, into the cell. Injection form may be a pretty good way to do it as well. Taking it orally, I don't know if it's actually very bioavailable, but you can use NMR, so nicotinamide mononucleotide. That one may be a little bit more easily to digest and consume. But you can obviously get this from red meats, which have the highest source of nicotinamide of anything.
Interesting. Yeah. That's just another reason why red meat can slow down the aging process. And I have a video where I talk about how red meat is the fountain of youth. But I didn't mention that. I didn't even know about the NAD in red meat. So that's very interesting. I was talking about ages, like advanced glycation and products, and about how carnosine in red meat literally destroys the ages. If you already ate sugar and carbs and you've developed ages, those molecules that speed up the aging process, the carnosine in red meat can literally go in there and untangle the ages and basically break them apart, and kind of offsetting the negative damage that you would have inflicted from carbs and sugar consumption.
I like that.
NAD. Yeah.
Yeah, people will say, can I just eat chicken breast? Chicken breast has less NAD, it has a fraction of what red meat has.
That's very interesting. Maybe if you can share a paper with me, we can highlight that even more, like exactly how much NAD is in red meat, or
there's a paper I can share with you on that. It's very interesting. And that brings us also to the calorie in, calorie out thing. Bodybuilders are super into this. They're like, oh, it's just caloric balance. Yeah. And not if you look at the NAD property, chicken breast is not equivalent to red meat at all. And grains, super low quality for NAD. You're also protein bioavailability as well. Bodybuilders will say, I can eat these oats and this is as much as some egg. Actually, no, because you can't actually digest the same, you can't get the same, you can't extract the amino acids out of oats as you would with some egg, for example.
Right, but then you have to supplement, and you would have to take so much of a higher dose to get the same benefit, right?
Yeah.
Again, so sorry, everybody. This is last time I let my dog be in the background. I said something earlier, and I said I really do want to live forever, and I know that's crazy to most people hearing that. But I remember watching a video by the Sense Foundation CEO and co-founder, Dr. Aubrey de Grey. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's very well known. Well, now something happened, like some lawsuit, they took him out, like sexual harassment claims. And I just found out about that like a year ago, which was really sad because this guy has so much experience basically in anti-aging. And this is what he had to say. He was on a podcast with Tom Bilyeu, and he said that there's a 50% chance that in the next 15 years, we can achieve something called escape velocity. And escape velocity is the point where, if you choose, you can take all the treatments that medicine has to offer, and that will give you enough time for medicine to advance so that you can take those other treatments. And at that point, it becomes constantly, like, you can keep up with living for as long as you want, because at some point we're going to learn how to reverse aging or cure aging as a chronic disease. And so the goal is to achieve that escape velocity, and being around. So are you familiar with that, or, you know, yeah?
Yeah, so with bioidentical hormones, we can offset a lot of the disease processes. So women are told that hot flashes in menopause are normal. But when you actually look at the literature on it, the more hot flashes a woman has, the more at risk they are of stroke and heart attacks down the road. So what we can do, if a woman is having a hard time with this, we can optimize her hormones and we can allow them to age more gracefully. And this offsets a lot of cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, sarcopenia, atrophy of the brain. Through hormone replacement, you can offset a lot of these traditional normal diseases of age, right? They're not normal, they're pathological.
Exactly. But a lot of people though are scared of bioidentical hormones, right? Because of the earlier generation of that.
Yeah, there were some bad studies done initially with, especially in women, on equine hormones. And, you know, these are synthetic hormones that increase disease, increase risk of clots. And we know this with oral contraceptives. So many women are on these, and they are dangerous. They're very dangerous. They do increase risk of blood clots, specifically in genetically susceptible women. But, you know, women are put on these all the time without a second thought towards it, when there's so many better options out there towards, you know, bioidentical real hormone replacement.
So you would recommend that for everybody, right? That as we age, we're naturally going to lose some of the ability to some of those hormones.
Definitely. I mean, men especially. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's you know, male with low testosterone, they have higher incidence of prostate cancer, higher incidence of heart attack, stroke. And if you replace the testosterone, you can fix a lot of these normal processes of aging that we always see. There's a lot of misconception that testosterone replacement will give a man prostate cancer and a heart attack, when it's actually the opposite is true. It's a low testosterone that increases risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer.
That makes total sense. Yeah. Okay, that's very, very interesting. I could talk about anti-aging forever, because this is obviously my real passion, and we can definitely maybe schedule another interview like just about that, if you're up for that.
Yeah.
What would be, or what would be the main takeaway that you would want people watching this interview to go away with?
Start reading labels. There's soybean oil and canola oil in everything. They are mitochondrial disruptors. They cause high inflammation. Just go through your kitchen and just throw this stuff in the trash. Go through your kitchen, throw away these heart healthy grains. They're not. They're either moldy or they will increase inflammation. Just clean up the kitchen. Just make your life simpler. I say it doesn't need to be, you know, calorie counting, very difficult, complex. No, just eat like your ancestors did. Did your ancestors have a Snickers bar? No, they did not. Just make it more simple.
Exactly. And diet is paramount. That's where you start, right?
That's where you start. It's the basic stuff. Basic.
Exactly. So where do you see your practice and what you're doing? Where do you see yourself in the next few years?
Well, I really want to make this a platform for like-minded providers who are trying to escape the system. I want, you know, your PA, NP, MD, DO, and you want to escape working for a corporate system. You can be your local neighborhood superhero, right? We need this. It's affordable. Direct primary care is the way to change this corrupt healthcare system. It's the way to go away from this insurance-based model of care where we're pushing and pills on people that don't make people better. You actually get paid for what you're worth, which is spending time with patients, and patients are able to contact their primary and not have to sit in a waiting room. It's very direct. It's very easy for patients. They just get better quality care through direct primary care. And, you know, it's affordable. It's like a gym membership. It's a monthly subscription, and you have access to a primary who spends time with you.
That's awesome. I will definitely link all of this information. Maybe you can send me everything, you know, so people can find you really quickly, patients and providers who are interested in this model of healthcare. So yeah, I will post also all of your social media handles below so everybody can check you out. You put out a lot of great information on YouTube and on Instagram. Do you have any additional social media platforms?
That's pretty much where I put the most. I post on Facebook, Iron Direct Primary Care as well, but mostly YouTube and Instagram. That's where I keep the material out.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stefan. This has been really great. I think we can definitely do another one with anti-aging, maybe in the future. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. And this has been great. And I will see you and hopefully talk to you soon.
Yeah, this was fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.